South Africa, especially among the Zulu tribe, there are scary legends about a supernatural creature called Tokoloshe. This creature is already part of folklore passed down from generation to generation, and the fear of it is so deep that it affects various aspects of the life of local people. Tokoloshe is depicted as a small figure, resembling a human, but with a far from normal appearance. His body is often deformed, with crooked legs or arms that are too long. His hair is sparse and often looks messy, adding to the creepy impression of this creature. His eyes were huge, glowing in the dark, as if capable of penetrating the soul of anyone who dared to look at him. Tokoloshe are known to have the ability to disappear and reappear at will, making them difficult to track down or capture. These creatures are often associated with evil sorcerers or witches who use Tokoloshe for evil purposes. A shaman could summon Tokoloshe through dark rituals involving animal or even human sacrifices with special spells. Once summoned, Tokoloshe becomes the magician's loyal servant, carrying out every order given to him. The tasks assigned can vary, from stealing valuables, causing illness in certain people, to acts of violence such as murder. Tokoloshe's existence is so feared that many people in rural South Africa are taking steps to protect themselves. One of the common measures is to sleep with a raised bed using brick or wood. They believe that Tokoloshe could not climb high beds, so they would be safe during sleep. Some people even hang amulets or perform periodic cleansing rituals to expel the presence of Tokoloshe from their homes. Many stories are circulating about the experiences of people who met Tokoloshe. The legend of Tokoloshe not only describes people's fear of supernatural beings, but also reflects their belief in dark forces and magic. For many people in South Africa, Tokoloshe is a symbol of everything evil and inexplicable. These creatures serve as a reminder that behind the real world they know, there is another world full of mysteries and unseen dangers. According to folklore that has been passed down from generation to generation, Tokoloshe are creatures created by witches or sorcerers with the aim of scaring or harming others. The origins of this creature are so intertwined in local beliefs that many believe that Tokoloshe is a vivid manifestation of the evil intentions that exist in the world. The process of creating Tokoloshe is not an easy task and requires a powerful magic power, as well as deep knowledge of black magic. The witch, who is usually thought of as an individual with extraordinary magical abilities, will perform a dark ritual to summon and revive the Tokoloshe. This ritual is often performed at night, when the forces of darkness are considered the most powerful. One of the important elements of the ritual is the sacrificial sacrifice. Witches would choose a specific sacrifice, usually one that was thought to have special power or meaning, and sacrifice it as an offering to dark spirits. These sacrifices were performed in a very ritualistic manner, accompanied by the recitation of ancient mantras that were believed to open a portal between the real world and the spirit world. In addition to using sacrifices, witches also use various magical materials, such as potions made from poisonous plants, animal blood, and objects that have been given special spells. All these ingredients are mixed in a ritual container and then placed in a place that is considered sacred or has magical powers. During this process, magicians will enter a state of trance, where they communicate with spirits or other entities that grant them the power to animate Tokoloshe. In this state, they will cast dark spells that have been taught for generations, ensuring that the Tokoloshe they create will be obedient and faithful to them. After the ritual is completed and the Tokoloshe is summoned, this creature will emerge from the shadows, ready to carry out the witch's orders. The Tokoloshe is often portrayed as a vengeful and hateful being, always looking for ways to inflict suffering on the people he targets. One of the most common tasks assigned to Tokoloshe was to steal valuables. This creature is known to be very cunning and good at sneaking, so it can get into the house unnoticed and take whatever it wants. In addition, Tokoloshe is also often assigned to cause illness or misfortune. People who are victims will usually experience a series of unexplained adverse events, ranging from sudden and severe illness to job loss or the destruction of personal relationships. The most frightening thing is that Tokoloshe is also known as a killer. In some stories, a particularly vengeful or envious witch would order a Tokoloshe to deprive a person of life. These murders are often committed in a very violent way and leave no obvious traces, making them look like natural deaths or tragic accidents. Tokoloshe's existence and the stories about him add a layer of fear to the daily lives of South Africans. For many, Tokoloshe is more than a legend. It is a real threat that always lurks in the shadows, ready to attack at any moment. This fear reinforced their belief in the importance of protective rituals and amulets to guard against this invisible evil. In addition to raising the bed with bricks or wood and accompanied by various rituals and the use of protective amulets, the raised bed becomes a kind of personal fortress that provides a sense of security for those who are very afraid of Tokoloshe interference. Some families also hang special amulets around the bed or on the doors and windows of their homes. These amulets, often made by shamans or people thought to have magical knowledge, were believed to have the power to ward off evil spirits and supernatural beings. They can be small objects such as prayer beads, pendants, or even roots and spices that have magical powers. In addition, there are also house cleaning rituals that are carried out periodically. This ritual involves burning certain herbs that produce smoke that is believed to be able to drive away negative energies and evil beings. The smoke will be spread throughout the house, including under beds and in dark corners, where Tokoloshe is believed to often hide. One of the most famous stories is about a farmer named Mandla and his family. Mandla is a simple and hard-working guy. They just moved in a small remote village. Mandla and his family bought a house that had long been empty and abandoned by the previous owner. But his life changes drastically after a series of strange events begin to occur in his house. At first, they were very happy with their new home. However, as the night progressed, strange events began to occur. They often hear strange noises at night, like footsteps upstairs even though no one is there. The lights often turn on and off on their own, even if the electrical installation has just been repaired. One night, Emily, Mandla's wife, is awakened by the sound of a small child crying from behind her bedroom door. When he opened the door, no one was there. He returned to his bed cautiously, but the cries continued to be heard around the corridors of the house. He also began to see shadows hovering in the middle of the night as he searched the kitchen for drinking water. On a dark and windy night, Tommy, Mandla's son, wakes up feeling something strangling his neck. His eyes were open, but he couldn't move or speak. He felt his breath begin to pant, while the dark shadow he knew from his nightmares approached. Tommy tried hard to scream, but his voice didn't come out. The ghost was getting closer, His form began to be seen more clearly. His body seemed transparent with eyes that emitted a terrifying red light. Tommy felt the grip on his neck getting stronger, making it difficult for him to breathe. Mandla is awakened by a noise in her son's bedroom. As he rushed towards the room, he saw a small shadow with glowing eyes jumping out of the window. Mandla's son lay in bed with a pale face and trembling body, confessing that the creature tried to strangle him in his sleep. Mandla's fear reaches its peak when she finds scratch marks all over her son's body. Feeling desperate, Mandla summons a shaman to expel Tokoloshe from his home. Before long, the terrifying events intensified. They often find their belongings move around on their own. The paintings on the walls shifted for no apparent reason, and sometimes they heard whispering voices from the dark corners of the room. One night, events culminate when Emily sees a female shadow walking down the aisle without a head. She screamed hysterically, waking Mandla and her children. They tried to get out of the house, but the doors felt like they were tightly locked without a key. With deep fear, they decided to seek help from a local psychic. The psychic came and did a spiritual cleansing in the house. Mandla and her family are worried. They try to find out more about the history of the house, and they find that several tens of years ago, a terrible tragedy once happened there. The house they occupy is that of a former evil witch who performed the ritual of summoning Tokoloshe. The witch performed the forbidden ritual only to kill a person, because Tokoloshe could be used as a tool for revenge. In a society that strongly believes in the power of magic, there is a belief that Tokoloshe can be told to annoy or kill someone on the orders of envious or vengeful people. Reportedly, the ritual of summoning Tokoloshe in Mandla's house is carried out with human sacrifices. It is believed that the spirit of the person to whom the sacrifice is dedicated continues to wander in the house. It was Tokoloshe who arranged the whole creepy incident in the house. Not only the physical disturbance caused by Tokoloshe, this creature is also known for its psychological power that can destroy the victim's mental. The youngest child, Mandla, began to suffer from nightmares. In his dreams, Tokoloshe came every night, looked at him with shining eyes and whispered terrible things that made him wake up in a state of fear and sweating, show signs of mental disorders, talk to himself, and refuse to sleep. He feels that Tokoloshe not only haunts his dreams but also controls his mind. A tragic story also comes from a small village where a woman named Thandi is accused of having sent Tokoloshe to kill her own brother over an inheritance dispute. The night after the dispute, Thandi's brother was found dead with strange scars on his body that could not be explained by the medical. The villagers believe that it is Tokoloshe who is responsible, summoned by Thandi through a dark ritual to get rid of his brother. Although Thandi has always denied the allegations, the fear and suspicion towards her has never gone away. Tokoloshe came to the victim while he was sleeping. He woke up in the middle of the night with an excruciating pain in his chest, as if something was pressing on him. As he opened his eyes, he saw Tokoloshe sitting on his chest, looking at him with eyes that shone sharply. He felt that his breathing had stopped, and the world seemed to begin to fade around him. With the rest of his strength, he tried to reach for the protective amulet hung at the head of his bed. As soon as the amulet was touched by him, Tokoloshe disappeared, leaving him breathless and sweaty. In a small village, there is an old house known as the place inhabited by Nomsa, an old woman who lives alone after being abandoned by the rest of her family. Nomsa is determined and full of wisdom, but her courage is tested in a night that will turn into a nightmare. One night, Namsa was awakened by a strange noise that sounded like small steps and subtle friction on the wooden floor of her worn-out house. Carefully, he opened his eyes in the darkness, only to see a small shadow moving in the corner of his room. Tokoloshe's big eyes glowed dazzlingly in the darkness, giving goosebumps to his fur. The creature approached slowly, its movements like a living shadow under a dim light. As Tokoloshe approached Namsa's bed, he sensed the creature's presence becoming more apparent. Quickly, Tokoloshe began pulling the blanket that protected Namsa from the night's cold. Namsa felt the bone-chilling cold air as her blanket was pulled, and it made her howl loudly in fear. Her loud screams woke her other neighbors, who immediately rushed towards her house full of worrying. Anxiously, Namsa's neighbors opened the door of her old, rattling house. They entered a dark room, carrying torches to illuminate every corner. However, when they reached Namsa's room, a surprise awaited them. Tokoloshe has disappeared like smoke, with no clear trace of where it went. Only Namsa, with her pale face and eyes that radiated deep fear, stood in the middle of a room that was getting colder and colder. The incident left a deep imprint on Namsa. The old woman never really recovered from the Tokoloshe attack. He begins to have terrible nightmares every night, where Tokoloshe comes back to drag him into the endless darkness. His composure was disturbed, and his once calm and thoughtful face was now always tense in unspoken anxiety. News of Tokoloshe's attack on Namsa spread quickly among the villagers. Those who had previously underestimated the power of legends now felt frightened and wary. The houses in the village began to be more closely guarded, with protective amulets hung on the doors and windows. Collective fear spreads among them, making the villagers' nights feel increasingly quiet and tense. Some young men in the village, always curious and eager to prove their mettle, began to conduct secret searches around Namsa's house. They are looking for signs of the presence of Tokoloshe or other clues that could explain the presence of the creature. However, their search always ends in vain, with only mysterious traces found on the ground outside Namsa's window. The story of Namsa and the Tokoloshe attack raises new questions and stories in the village. Local people warn each other to stay vigilant, not to underestimate the power of the folklore that has been passed down from generation to generation. They learn that dark forces can come in unexpected forms, and that protection must be taken seriously, both physically and spiritually. Tokoloshe remains a reminder to the villagers of the unpredictability of the spirit world and the forces that can sneak into their lives. They learn to respect and cherish their folk tales carefully, because behind myths and legends, there may be a terrifying thread of truth lurking in the dark corners of the night. These stories show the depth of fear of Tokoloshe in rural South African society. This fear is not just a mere fear of supernatural beings, but also a fear of evil forces that other humans can control through magic. In a culture that highly values togetherness and harmony, the existence of the Tokoloshe became a symbol of everything bad and destructive. Tokoloshe is not just a creature from folklore, he is a real threat that is believed to be able to attack at any time, especially when a person is at the most vulnerable point of his life. The stories of Tokoloshe continue to live and evolve, reflecting people's deep-seated fear and belief in dark forces that are invisible yet always lurking in the shadows.